segment, or I feel like it's starting to turn into that. Bijan Robinson is the new Anthony Richardson segment on the Draft Countdown podcast here. Been listening to the Locked On Scouting podcast there with Joe Marino and Kyle Kraft, formerly the Draft Network. I really like those guys, so I wanted to listen to their new show. And they had a show the other day where they basically went 1 through 31, every team in the first round, and said, would Bijan Robinson be in play here? And they essentially came up with like 8 to 10 teams that they could see it happening. So I want to narrow that down to 3 here, Shane. And I want you to, not necessarily from a fantasy point of view, but from a team fit, get the most success out of, if you're going to take a running back in the first round, let's at least make it a successful journey here. Let's do Adrian Peterson, not, some of the other ones. Where are the 3 best fits for Bijan Robinson?
So I think there's a lot. Like, I think the easy answer to me is boom, 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 8, 9, 10. Like, I think Atlanta is an ideal spot where they have a run first offense. He can play. He could be Derrick Henry, right, in the Arthur Smith offense. You have a young quarterback you're trying to develop. I mean, that seems like a good spot for him to not only be productive, but for that offense to move forward. I think Chicago at 9 is intriguing because they have Justin Fields. They're a run first team. I mean, they ran so much a lot of times with Fields last season. I think it takes some of that run pressure off of him, but you don't have to become the air raid, throw it everywhere offense that they probably don't want to be. So I think that balances that offense well. And I think Philly's kind of the other end where you have a really good team. Once again, have a running quarterback. It's going to open some lanes in the run game. And Bijan gives you just a dynamic element to the offense that they didn't have. I think that one's maybe the third on my list because of how they utilize the running back. They really don't utilize that RB1 in Miles Sanders like they did, but they brought him in for a visit. I think it's a strong possibility. Maybe they move down from 10 and take him. And then I think it allows, how do you stop that Eagles offense with that offensive line? So I think that could be Howie Roseman saying, all right, I'm going to go away from my philosophy here because this makes us maybe unstoppable if you have a running back like this. So I think the fit could be better than it maybe looks on paper for the Eagles.
Another thing they talked about was the further he falls in the first round, which is a possibility because of the positional value, the better off it ends up being from a contract perspective was one of their things. Because basically if he starts going like 17, 18, his contract throughout the length of the deal basically ends up being like the 20th or 25th highest paid running back contract in the NFL right now. So it just becomes incredible value, from that perspective. And for all of the mocking of you that I did when you had the Bijan Robinson going to the Bengals a few weeks in one of your mocks, maybe a month or so ago, I'll be damned if that has not been the talk of Bengals podcasting here this last week about the possibility of putting Bijan Robinson in the Bengals offense.
Well, it's a similar thing with Philly, right? As good Joe, I think Joe Mixon's a good running back. I do. But as good as he is, I mean, if you upgrade that position and how do you stop that offense? Like, what do you do? I think it's just so difficult then to stop the offense when you have an elite running back. And I think if you're a team like the Bengals, where your window is, hey, we'd like to get this Super Bowl, this year before you got to pay Joe Burrow, or any year or two before you kind of have to take that money and run, draft the running back, right? Instead of paying one. I don't think it's a bad thing. So he's going to be a tough mock. Like I'm probably going to put him with Philly only because they get 2 shots. Like I feel like that he can fall to 30. And I think they scoop him up, or they can move down from 10 and draft him in the middle of the first round. So that's probably where he ends up in my final mock draft, just because you got the 2 shots to kind of get it.
I like it. Detroit's another team at 18. I think is.
Yeah. They paid Montgomery a decent amount. It's the only thing that holds me back is like, I don't think they're going to pay Montgomery not to use him. So now you have 3 running backs because you still got DeAndre Swift there. If they had signed Montgomery, I mean, I would have slam dunked, I think, Bijan to Detroit somewhere.
That's fair. All right. So let's say you're a team that's considering drafting Bijan Robinson, but you don't get him, or you don't want to, like we said, you don't want to spend a first-round pick on a running back. What is the fall off to RB2 after Bijan Robinson? And are you really losing that much if, like, you don't draft him and you get the 2nd or 3rd or 4th best running back in this class? Are you really going to lose that? Is it going to kill you if you don't?
It's a good question. I definitely think Bijan's an elite player. I think the fall off is pretty big. And, if we go to our RB2, kind of the consensus RB2 in this class, being Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, here's as a running back, it's under 200 pounds. I think that is electric. That can be a lead back. Catches the ball really well. But, he's not a 3-down Bijan. This isn't Bijan Robinson. So now I think if you're, okay, we want a Bijan. We didn't get him. We're looking round 2, round 3. You got Zach Charbonnet at UCLA, Roschon Johnson, right? Bijan's backup, Kendre Miller at TCU. Like, those are the running backs that you're going to. And I don't think you feel as confident that they are going to be, these stud starting running backs. I personally like Charbonnet. I like Roschon. Like, I think they can, but I think that's the problem here is the next best, the Jahmyr Gibbs, the Devin Achane, the Tajay Spears, these guys are smaller, and that's what a lot of running backs in this class are.
I think the next best, like, comparable running back in size to Bijan is Charbonnet, but he is not near the speed